All right, let's dive into a topic you probably haven't thought much about. Tin mining in Nigeria.
Tin mining.
Yeah, tin mining. It might not sound as thrilling as some of our other deep dives, but trust me,
Okay.
this one's a doozy. We're looking at a brand new investigative report from Premium Times called Beneath the Surface, the dark world of illicit tin mining in Plateau. It was just published today, November 19th, 2024.
Okay.
So in this deep dive, we're going to uncover a whole network of illegal mining operations, try to figure out why a boom in tin production isn't translating into big bucks for the government.
Right.
And we'll meet the people who are caught in the middle of it all.
I think what's so interesting about this report is how it connects these global trends with what's happening locally, on the ground in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Think about the shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy.
Right.
That's creating a huge demand for tin, which is a key component in things like solar panels and electric vehicle batteries.
Right. The report highlights this kind of crazy paradox.
Yeah.
Nigeria's tin production is skyrocketing because of this global demand.
Yeah.
But the government isn't seeing much of a return. It doesn't really add up.
It's a bit of a head scratcher, right? But one detail from the report really brings it home.
Okay.
In the early 2000s, a ton of tin cost around $5,000. Today, that same ton is worth a staggering $31,000.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a huge price jump.
it is.
Okay, so with demand going through the roof and prices skyrocketing, why isn't the Nigerian government cashing in?
Well, that's where the dark world part of the report's title comes in. It all comes down to these illegal mining operations. They're running rampant in Plateau State, and the whole system seems designed to benefit a select few, leaving the government and a lot of local communities out in the cold.
Yeah, the report really brings this point home with some pretty powerful personal accounts.
Yeah.
One that stood out to me was the story of Emma Kago, a miner who just straight up admits to operating without a license.
Wow.
He even casually mentions that authorities only seem to target foreign miners, which creates this sense that local illegal operations can just fly under the radar.
That's a problem. Mr. Kago's experience really points to a lack of enforcement and oversight.
Yeah.
It's like a black market, as one trader put it,
Right.
where the rules just don't seem to apply.
So we've got this booming industry fueled by illegal activity. Where does all this tin go?
Well, the report actually takes us on a journey,
Oh, cool.
tracing the tin from those illicit mines to the global buyers.
Okay.
It starts in the bush, as the miners call it. We meet Miracle Adu there.
Okay.
She's 52 years old and turned to mining after a string of failed businesses. Her story really highlights how many people are drawn to this industry hoping to strike it rich.
Wow. After the tin is mined, where does it go?
Well, from those pretty makeshift mines, the tin flows through this intricate network of buyers and sellers,
Okay.
often ending up in what they call tin sheds.
Tin sheds.
Yeah.
Okay.
These unregulated buying centers scattered across Jos, the capital of Plateau State.
So I'm picturing something out of an old Western film. What exactly goes down in these tin sheds?
Think of them as the middlemen in this shadowy industry. These unregulated hubs are where miners bring their tin ore to sell. From there, the tin is bought and sold again, moving up the chain until it reaches big-time traders and exporters who ship it overseas.
So it's like a giant unregulated marketplace for tin operating right under everyone's noses.
Yeah.
That can't be good.
It's a recipe for trouble. This lack of regulation allows illegal mining to flourish, depriving the government of much-needed revenue.
Right.
It's a system that seems rigged to benefit those at the top, while everyone else scrambles for scraps.
We've got this huge global demand for tin, a surge in local production driven by illegal mining, and a network of unregulated buyers and sellers. It sounds like a ticking time bomb.
It's certainly a precarious situation,
Yeah.
and it raises some serious questions about the human cost of all this.
For sure.
While the report focuses heavily on economics and regulations, we can't lose sight of the people at the heart of the story.
Absolutely. One detail that really stuck with me was how the real profits aren't going to the small-time miners,
Right.
but to those big buyers and exporters at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
It feels like the system is deliberately stacked against the people doing the backbreaking work.
It's a classic tale of exploitation, unfortunately. The people at the bottom of the ladder are working hard, but only seeing a tiny fraction of the wealth generated by their labor.
Right?
It's a system that seems designed to keep them there.
It makes you wonder about the long-term consequences of all this. What happens to these communities when the mines dry up? What about the environmental damage?
These are critical questions, and they point to a larger issue, the sustainability of this entire operation.
Yeah.
Can it continue like this without causing irreparable harm? That's something we'll delve deeper into in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds like things are about to get even more interesting. I'm ready to learn more about the human stories behind this tin trade. Let's dive in. So we've laid out the big picture, right? Booming tin production in Nigeria, a surge in illegal mining, and this complicated web of buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears for a second
Okay.
and zoom in on the human side of this story.
Yeah.
What about the people actually doing the mining?
Yeah, that's the heart of the matter, isn't it? We've already met Emma Kago and Miracle Adu, right? Two people navigating this really complicated, often treacherous industry.
Yeah.
Their stories really highlight those tough choices people face when they're just trying to make ends meet.
Yeah, those stories were pretty eye-opening.
Yeah.
And the report makes it clear that they're not alone. There's a whole network of people caught up in this trade.
Right.
From the miners digging in the dirt to the traders buying and selling the tin.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast, isn't it?
Yeah.
On one hand, you have this potential for riches, right? The potential riches of tin mining.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, these harsh realities for those at the bottom rung of the ladder.
Yeah, that's what really struck me about this report. It's not just about numbers and statistics. It's about real people's lives.
Exactly.
And the report highlights that while some artisanal miners manage to make a bit of money,
Yeah.
the big profits are flowing to those higher up the chain, the buyers and the exporters.
It's a familiar story, unfortunately. Those at the top of the pyramid are reaping the rewards while those at the bottom are struggling to survive.
It's like a modern-day gold rush, right?
Yeah.
This allure of striking it rich, it draws people in,
Right.
but the system seems rigged against them from the start.
Yeah, exactly. And this raises some serious questions about fairness and the long-term impact of this industry on these communities.
Yeah.
Who's really benefiting here? And who's paying the price?
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the big picture.
Yeah.
The global demand, the production numbers, the price per ton.
Right.
But we can't forget that behind all those figures are real people, families, communities,
Yeah.
whose lives are directly affected by this industry.
That's what makes this deep dive so important. We're not just talking about abstract economic forces, we're talking about the human consequences of those forces. And I think the report does a really remarkable job of bringing those stories to life.
Yeah, one story that really resonated with me was Denladi Daniel. He left his farm, hoping to find a better future for his family, lured by these stories of people striking it rich in the tin mines.
It's a familiar tale, isn't it?
Yeah.
The hope of a better life driving people to take risks.
Yeah,
But as this report reveals, the reality is often far more complicated.
that's for sure. The report paints a pretty grim picture. The work is dangerous, the income is unpredictable, and the threat of exploitation looms large. And then there's the environmental impact to consider.
Right. And the report touches on how these unregulated mining operations are leaving scars on the landscape. Polluted rivers, displaced communities, and land that's been stripped bare.
It's a classic case of short-term gain, long-term pain.
It is.
It makes you wonder, who's ultimately going to bear the cost of this environmental damage?
That's a critical question. And it's not just the physical environment that's being affected.
Right.
The report hints at how this industry is also putting a strain on the social fabric of these communities.
That's an important point, yeah. You can imagine how the allure of quick money could lead to conflicts.
Sure.
With people competing for access to land and resources.
Exactly. And it's not hard to see how this could exacerbate existing social inequalities.
Right.
Those with connections and capital are always in a better position to benefit from these kinds of booms while others get left behind.
Yeah. And then there's the issue of government corruption, which the report alludes to but doesn't fully explore.
Yeah.
You have to wonder if that lack of transparency and accountability is part of what allows these illegal activities to thrive.
It's certainly a factor. When you have a system that's riddled with corruption, it's the most vulnerable who end up paying the price.
It sounds like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But even with all these challenges, the report does introduce us to people who are trying to make a living in this industry.
Right.
We met Nafio Ishak, who started as a laborer in a pin shed, but saw an opportunity to make more money by trading the tin himself.
His story offers a glimpse into how these tin sheds, unregulated buying centers, function as intermediaries between the small-scale miners and the larger companies.
Yeah, he describes it as a black market, where you just buy from one person and sell to another,
All right.
with the ultimate destination being a big company.
And that brings us to another critical layer of this story.
Yeah.
The role of companies and international buyers.
Yeah. All right, so far we've focused mainly on the local context of tin mining in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But it's clear that this is a global issue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The demand for tin is coming from all corners of the world.
Yeah.
Fueled by our ever-growing appetite for electronics and renewable energy technologies.
It's a sobering thought, right? When we buy a new smartphone or an electric car,
Yeah.
we rarely think about where those materials came from or who might have been exploited in the process.
It's a reminder that our choices as consumers have consequences.
Yeah.
And those consequences often extend far beyond our own borders.
So we've uncovered this dark underbelly of the tin mining industry.
Yeah.
The illicit networks, the human cost, the role of companies and international buyers.
Right.
It's a pretty bleak picture.
Yeah.
But is there any hope for change?
Well, that's the question we'll grapple with in the final part of our deep dive. We'll explore what's being done to address this complex problem and what role governments, communities, and companies can play in creating a more just and sustainable future for the tin mining industry.
Right, I'm ready to hear about some solutions. Let's wrap this up and move on to part 3. Okay, so we've really gone deep into the dark side of Nigeria's tin mining industry.
Yeah.
We've seen those illegal operations, the human toll, the companies making profits,
Right.
and that global demand that's driving it all. It's heavy stuff.
Yeah.
But now, let's talk solutions.
Okay.
Can this industry be turned around? Is there, any hope for a brighter future?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The good news is that the report does offer a few glimmers of hope.
Okay.
It suggests a multi-pronged approach, tackling the issue from different angles.
Okay.
We need action from the government,
Okay.
empowerment of local communities, and a major shift in how companies operate.
So let's break that down. First up, the government. What can they do to, clean up this mess? Create a mining sector that's actually regulated and transparent.
Well, the report's pretty clear on this one. The Nigerian government needs to step up and take a more proactive approach. We're talking about cracking down on those illegal operations, enforcing those existing laws,
Right.
and holding companies accountable for where they're sourcing their tin.
That sounds like a tall order. I mean, we've talked about the corruption and the weak governance that seem to be fueling this whole problem.
Right.
Can the government really turn things around?
It's definitely not going to be easy, but it is absolutely essential.
Yeah.
They need to send a strong message that illegal mining won't be tolerated.
Okay.
And that they're serious about creating a level playing field for everyone.
Okay, so stronger regulations and enforcement are key. But what about the communities themselves?
Right.
How can they be empowered to protect their interests and, have a say in what happens to the resources on their land?
That's where community-based initiatives come in. The report really highlights the importance of supporting local cooperatives, providing training and resources for sustainable mining practices, and ensuring that communities actually have a seat at the table when decisions are being made.
So it's about shifting those power dynamics.
Exactly.
Giving the people most affected by this industry a real voice.
Right. It's about recognizing that these communities aren't just passive bystanders, They're key stakeholders with rights and interests that need to be respected.
All right. So we've talked about the government and the communities.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the companies.
Okay.
What role do they play in creating a more ethical and sustainable tin industry?
This is where corporate social responsibility comes in.
Okay.
Companies need to move beyond simply, checking boxes and complying with the bare minimum.
Right.
They need to actively work to source their tin ethically and sustainably.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, we're talking about thorough due diligence, actually investigating their suppliers to make sure that they're operating legally and responsibly.
Right.
And it also means investing in those communities, supporting development projects that actually benefit the people who are most affected by their operations.
So it's about companies recognizing that they have a responsibility that goes beyond just making profits.
Exactly, yeah. It's about recognizing that they have a moral obligation to operate in a way that benefits all stakeholders,
Right.
not just their shareholders.
Okay, so it sounds like real change requires a combination of factors here.
Yeah.
Stronger government regulation,
Yep.
empowered communities,
Yeah.
and those responsible corporate practices.
You got it. It's a complex challenge,
Yeah.
but it's not impossible. There are examples from around the world
Right.
where the mining industry has been successfully reformed
Right.
to be more sustainable and equitable.
That's encouraging. But even with all these efforts, it seems like there's still a long way to go.
Yeah.
What gives you hope that things can actually change?
You know, one thing that really struck me throughout this whole deep dive is the power of information. Just having this report
Yeah.
shining a light on this, this dark underbelly of this industry
Right.
is a huge step forward.
You're right. Investigative journalism like this is so important for, exposing wrongdoing, holding those in power accountable,
Yeah.
and raising awareness about these really critical issues.
Exactly. And it reminds us that we all have a role to play.
Yeah.
We can demand transparency from the companies we support,
Yeah.
push for stronger regulations, and make informed choices as consumers.
So what's the takeaway for our listeners today? What can they do to make a difference?
Well, first and foremost, stay informed.
Okay.
Read articles, watch documentaries, learn about where the products you buy come from.
Right.
Support organizations working to promote responsible mining practices.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to ask questions.
Yeah, that's a great point. We often feel so powerless in the face of these huge global issues.
Yeah.
But simply being aware and asking questions can actually make a difference.
Absolutely. And remember, every little action can have a ripple effect. By making conscious choices and speaking up, we can all contribute to a more just and sustainable future.
Yeah.
Not just for the tin mining industry, but for everyone.
That's a great note to end on. We've uncovered a lot in this deep dive, a complex and challenging story,
Yeah.
but ultimately one that offers hope for a better way forward. Thanks for joining us on this journey.